Today I'm taking you through the rise and fall of the top 10 legendary pirates in One Piece history. And starting things off with the number 1 spot on our list, we have the legendary pirate Davy D. Jones. What's crazy about this man is that while the world government wiped the name of pirates like Joy Boy or Rox D. Zebek from public history, the name Davy Jones is still a genuine pop cultural phenomenon in the modern world of One Piece. Just about every pirate on the Grand Line knows who he is. The Davy back fight is directly based on his legend, the myth that he will claim absolutely anything and anyone that sinks to the ocean floor. And this is definitely crazy. I mean, look at the Celestial Dragons and how much they despise the Davy family line. During the native hunting competition at God Valley, they were very ruthless and full of bloodlust. You would think that Davy Jones would be the number 1 name the Gorosei would have made extra sure to completely scrub from existence. And yet, against all odds, his name survived. But what exactly was the rise and fall of the original Davy Jones? Well, if we take Rox as our source, then Davy Jones used to be the king of the world as implied in chapter 1164. What this means is that he was actually the king of the Great Kingdom that preceded the world government. But wait, Joy Boy was also a part of the Great Kingdom, and he was canonically the first pirate in history. So this is where things all get kind of confusing. If Davy Jones was the king of the world who ended up going down in history as a legendary pirate, but the first pirate was actually Joy Boy, then doesn't that mean Davy Jones likely became a pirate after Joy Boy? Especially when you look at the lore and see how the pirates in One Piece believe that Davy Jones is still alive and living at the sea floor. In fact, what do you think? Could it be that Davy Jones was punished to the depths of the sea by Imu's devil powers? Moving on, we have Joy Boy at number 2. By the way, keep in mind that this list is not a ranking, I'm just going through chronological order. Now we know that Joy Boy was born in the Great Kingdom 900 years ago, and he was the first one to be called a pirate. We also know many other things like how Joy Boy had the exact same true dream as Roger and Luffy, and how he used to be on good terms with Imu at one point. In fact, they may even have been like Madara and Hashirama. Eventually though, he fought the 20 kingdoms on the side of the Great Kingdom. Unfortunately, he lost despite having the ancient weapons and powerful allies like Zunisha, Emmet, Wano, Fishman Island, Alabasta, and the Minks. But despite the defeat, he also survived long enough to leave behind the ancient weapons for the future generations, along with a legendary treasure of unimaginable value on the final island. Not to mention, he set up the poneglyphs with the help of the Kozuki clan and Lily to guide those future generations. And because of all of this, you can argue that Joy Boy is a pirate who rose but still didn't exactly fall. I mean, we saw him use his Conqueror's Haki just 1 arc ago. He is the one responsible for setting up everything so that one day someone, and by someone we mean Luffy, can fulfill his will in place. But moving on to number 3, we have a warrior from a nation that still continues to produce pirates despite the Dark Ages, and that pirate is from Elbaf, a giant who was in his prime 300 years ago. We're talking about Big Mom's first major victim, Ja Rule. Alongside Ja Rule, he was the co-captain of the giant warrior pirates who roamed the seas for over 3 centuries. And considering what Hadrudin said about Ja Rule being the strongest on the sea over 300 years ago, it's safe to assume that Ja Rule, who was relative to Ja Rule, was on the same level. But unfortunately, Ja Rule has the absolute worst fallout of every legendary pirate we have in this video. Because although he was far past his prime, he was still killed by a 5-year-old Charlotte Linlin back then. What? Make it make sense. Now the pirate we have at number 4 is everyone's GOAT, Rox D. Zebek. His legend kicked in when he killed a Marine Admiral during the Reverie 56 years ago, and then also became the first and only pirate in history to successfully reach Imu's private flower room. From that moment on, he was fully locked in on dethroning Imu and reclaiming his family's legacy by becoming the king of the world. Rox went on to build the strongest pirate crew seen since the Void Century, and he had an actual plan to achieve his goal. This plan required finding 2 devil fruits, one of which was the Nidhogg fruit, and he wanted his best friend Harold to eat it. The other we don't know about yet, though it's highly likely that it's the Dark fruit. Now, aside from the fruits, Rock's plan also involved locating and recruiting the frozen ancient Galila giants. Of course, we still don't know the specifics, but considering the fact that Rox intimately knew how strong Emu was, knew the deep history between Emu Joy Boy and Davy Jones, and understood the history of his own family, it's safe to say that Rox had a legitimate method to defeat Emu. He clearly knew something critical about Emu's weakness and exactly how it would be countered by those two specific devil fruits. Unfortunately, fate had other plans. Before any of his long-term goals could actually materialize, Rox was left with no choice but to return to God Valley to save his family. And although technically he succeeded in saving them, things rarely work out in One Piece flashbacks. He was turned into a brainwashed demonic slave by Emu's Dami Reversi. He then started steamrolling his own crew members such as Kaido, Big Mom, and Whitebeard, and was then forced to follow Emu's orders to hunt down his own family line. Fortunately, Teach and Iris managed to survive the God Valley incident, and the combined Conqueror's Haki of Roger and Garp was able to stop Dami Reversi Rox. He regained his senses at the very end and was able to show gratitude to Roger and Garp, but before he could make his escape, he was put down by Saint Figarland Garling. Following his death, the world government redacted the entire event from the history books. They concerned information about Rox while also branding Garp as the hero of the Marines who took down Zebek all by himself. We all know that's cap. Now after Rox, we have the Pirate King himself, Gold D. Roger. Roger's rise and fall in One Piece is actually the catalyst for the entire narrative. It started when he met Silver's Rayleigh and asked him to join so that they can turn the world upside down. He started building his crew and developed a sense of rivalry with Garp and Rox. Although it was clearly Rox's era before the God Valley incident, Roger, Rox, and Garp all were relative to each other. Roger reached Lodestar Island a year before the God Valley incident, where he learnt about how the 4 road poneglyphs are needed to reach the true final island. After God Valley, he adopted Shanks, and almost 13 years after reaching Lodestar, as Roger finally gains all the road poneglyphs thanks to Odin, the crew sets out on their final journey on Oro Jackson. They reach the true final island, named it Laugh-Tale, and it is here that they learn all there is to know about the Void Century, about the ancient weapons, about Joy Boy's treasure, and about Joy Boy himself. In the aftermath of these events, the world named Roger the Pirate King, and his treasure was dubbed the One Piece. Roger had truly become the greatest pirate since the Void Century, but has he turned the world upside down? Ironically, that happens with his fall, so can you even call it his fall? Just like Joy Boy, Roger set things up for the future. Since he was going to die soon from his illness, he disbanded his crew, made love with Portgas the Rogue, and surrendered himself to the world government. They held a public execution in his hometown of Logtown, but before being killed, Roger used his final words to start the Great Pirate Era. But alright, at number 6, it might be someone you were not expecting, and that is Captain John. He was a member of the Rocks Pirate, and what's crazy about him is how after the One Piece itself, Captain John's treasure is the most sought out after in the pirate world. I mean, this was the treasure Buggy spent his entire career looking for. And let me point out that what makes Buggy help Luffy during Impel Down is actually Captain John's treasure armlet that could lead you to the treasure locations itself. The Straw Hats picked it up during Thriller Bark, and so Luffy just gives it to Buggy. But let's talk about John's rise and fall. He was one of the more prominent members of the Rocks Pirate, and during the God Valley incident, he used the power of the Magnet Fruit to attract a decent amount of the treasure that was on the island. After the fall of Rocks, John formed his own pirate crew and amassed a stupid amount of treasure, but he was so greedy that he wouldn't share anything with his crewmates. In fact, he hid it somewhere. His crew eventually had enough and they decided to kill him. But because nobody knew about the treasure's location, it still hasn't been found. As for John himself, or I guess his corpse, it ends up becoming one of Morio's general zombies. Moving on to number 7 though, we have Shiki. He had the largest fleet on the seas during Roger's era. And if we're talking about his time with the Rocks Pirate, you can say that Shiki is the 3rd strongest of the Rocks Pirates after Rocks himself and Whitebeard. I mean, he was with Rocks for around the same time as Whitebeard. And even after Linlin and Kaido joined, this likely didn't change because they were younger than him and much further away from their primes than him. Now fast forward to about a decade after the God Valley incident, Shiki confronts Roger and asks him to become his right-hand man to take over the world by using the ancient weapons. This results in the Battle of the Ed War. Then a few more years later, as Shiki learns about Roger's capture, he attacks Marineford, gets captured by Garp and Sengoku, and sent to the deepest level of Impel Down. Now we know he escapes, but you can count him out of the story because although he shows up in the non-canon Strong World movie, he is irrelevant in the actual canon storyline, which is crazy considering how much of a legend he was back in the day. And yet, even though he is still alive and likely heard Vegapunk's speech, Shiki is nowhere to be seen, which means his downfall had already happened. By the way, fun fact, Shiki is the only pirate in this video confirmed to be alive. Moving on, at number 8 is the man who came closest to becoming the Pirate King. We're talking about Edward Newgate, aka Whitebeard. He has the greatest portrayal of all the emperors, both current and former. He was Rox's right-hand man, Roger's equal, and the strongest man in the world. But all this man ever wanted was a family. He was born on the poor, war-torn island of Sphinx. He eventually set out on the seas, joined Rox, and although he didn't agree with Rox's ambition, he was on good terms with his crewmates. I mean, Rox would always pay for his drinks while he sent his own share of the loot back to Sphinx. Now, after Rox's fall, Whitebeard meets Pologram, and while we don't know what happened next and who joined who, the Whitebeard Pirates became a thing, and they also became the only crew since Rox's fall to truly rival the Roger Pirates. Whitebeard himself became the only pirate to rival Roger. He is also the second highest known pirate bounty ever, plus he knew about the D because Roger told him all the relevant information during their final meeting, which means he knew more than Kaido and Big Mom. And what's funny is he goes on to raise Rox's son Teach and also Roger's son Ace. But then there is Whitebeard's fall. I bet Whitebeard thought he'd be able to live out his final days in peace with his family before he inevitably passes away from cancer. But then Teach kills Thatch, and then Ace wants to go after Teach, and then Teach captures Ace, and then the world government sets up Ace execution. So ultimately, Whitebeard has to spend the last of his life going to war with the world government to save Ace. He fails unfortunately, but he uses his final moments to reignite the flames of piracy by foreshadowing the upcoming great battle that will turn the world upside down, and also adding the statement that the One Piece is real. His death is still the greatest of any death in One Piece. Now after Whitebeard, we have Charlotte Linlin, aka Big Mom, at number 9. And the funny thing about her is just how much her life would have been different if she had someone like Luffy in her early life. She was born to normal working class parents who understandably couldn't handle her and her appetite, so they dropped her off at Elbaf. She was taken in by Mother Caramel, and for what it's worth, she got along with the giants and the orphans, but then the hunger pang happened during the 12-day fast. She wreaked havoc and even killed Jarul, and later during her birthday party, she quite literally ate Mother Caramel and the other kids. There's plenty of messed up backstories in One Piece, but none like this itself. She was found by Stanton, who saw her potential for piracy, and although we don't know much about Big Mom's early days as a pirate, she got her first bounty at the age of 6. She also gets started on her Toto Land dream early and has her first child at the age of 18. As for when she joins Rox, it happened sometime before she was 24. She has a lot of children while she was with the Rox Pirates and also continued with her long-term plans. For example, her intention for going to God Valley was to get a good devil fruit for her children. The God Valley incident happens and everyone goes their own way. Big Mom continues with her plans and she obtains a road poneglyph somehow. Sometime after Roger's death, she becomes one of the 4 emperors and she builds a surveillance network that's second to only the world government. She also consistently increases her influence by marrying off her children. I mean, she was even going to marry off Lola to Loki, which in her own words was going to be what makes her the Pirate King. Ironically, it's also when she was trying to wed one of her daughters to Sanji of the Straw Hat Pirates when her downfall kicks into motion, But whatever, she doubles down on Luffy and even goes to Wano to hunt him. But when she meets Kaido, she decides to ally with him so that they can take the ancient weapons and the One Piece together. Ultimately though, her fall happens shortly after she is defeated by Kid and Law. Her empire is currently vulnerable considering how easily Van Augur and Kuzan managed to just walk in and take pudding. Finally, the last legendary pirate on our list is Kaido, the world's strongest creature. He was born in the Vodka Kingdom with Oni blood in his veins, and he became their strongest at just the age of 10. But when Kaido started questioning the system, the king sold him off to the Marines in exchange for the right to attend the next reverie. Of course, Kaido wasn't going to just stay quiet and go along with that, so he managed to escape and got himself a 70 million berry bounty. He'd still sometimes let the Marines capture him in order to have food, but he'd easily escape. He joined the Rocks Pirates at the age of 15, and during God Valley, he was basically the only male Rocks Pirate member who wasn't interested in saving Shaki. He was more interested in getting a good devil fruit, which he does by snatching the Azure Dragon Fruit from Big Mom. Sometime after God Valley, Kaido picked up Albert and the numbers from Punk Hazard. At this point, Kaido believed that he could change the world. And about a decade after God Valley, Kaido was offered to build weapons in Wano by Kurozumi Higurashi. He saw the potential and went all in. Oden and the samurai and then even Moria tried to overthrow him, but they all failed. Ultimately, as one of the 4 emperors, Wano became Kaido's stronghold and everyone knew not to mess with Wano. The world government and the Marines knew not to anger Kaido. Even Whitebeard didn't do anything after learning about Oden's death. So after he reached his prime, Kaido stayed undefeated, and he even believed that the only one who can defeat him is Joy Boy himself. And what do you know? Joy Boy is the one who indeed defeats him. Kaido's downfall happens in one single night, as everything he had built is destroyed by Luffy and his allies, which includes Yamato. The ruling of Kaido ends and Wano is freed. And there you have it. That was the rise and fall of the top 10 legendary pirates in One Piece history. Now you may be wondering why I didn't include characters like Nolan, Harold, and even Oars. Well, Nolan was actually an explorer and a botanist, not a pirate. Next, while Oars was a villain who terrorized the world, it's likely that he didn't consider himself a pirate, otherwise he would have taken over the giant warrior pirates. And as for Harold, although he was a pirate, he dropped the piracy altogether in favor of ruling Elbaf. So we can't really count his rise and fall here, since the most important parts of the story happens when he's already retired from piracy. Still, even aside from all of this, did I miss anyone? Let me know down in the comments. Also, let me know any other ideas you guys want to see for future videos. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, smash that like button for me. Hit that subscribe button so you guys don't miss on the next upload here on the channel. It's been a blast. Take it easy, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.